Okay. This one was kind of exciting to me, going through this. So, yeah, it was fun. So this one I'm calling Messiah Covenant, and there's kind of a subtitle title, which is going to be Eternal Currency, and you'll find out why in just a second. So, according to the biblical story, and quite frankly, economics in general, if you take any economics course, you're going to find this out, especially if you take economics courses that talk about morality in business. Trust, not money, is our primary currency. Can anybody guess why? Once again, we're a little interactive here. Go ahead, Kaylin. Okay. What about in business, though?
Because we want to trust the people we give our money to. We don't trust
them. Yep, we want to trust the people we give our money to. Go ahead, keep going. Yeah.
If we sign a contract, if we don't trust the person we sign our contract, well, now we've signed this contract, and what are they going to do? Sell our contract, and are we going to trust the person they sell the contract to?
Right, exactly. So you're right. So exactly. So you're working with contracts. We have to be able to have that ability to trust people in order for those contracts to be successful. But here's the thing: when it comes to all trust, every time, no matter what you're talking about, whether you're talking about business, morality, economic, whatever. Okay, we are always, whenever we interact with any human being, anyone, actually, even quite frankly, animals as well. And we find this, and I'll give you examples of this that I've seen personally. We're always leaning in to people or leaning away from people. And we do this, honestly, we do this subconsciously. This isn't something that we do on a conscious level. That we say, hey, can I trust this person? Can I trust you? We don't do this on a conscious level to say, hey, can I trust this kid? Right? Talking about Wyatt. Well, I have history with him. So obviously, but when Wyatt first met his uncle Justin, right, naturally he would have to have experiences with me to know whether or not he can lean in or lean away from me, put up his guards, right? And we do this with business, don't we? We do this with business where we say, and I'll give you a prime example. Okay? Everybody has their own their own chiropractor, right? My chiropractor's the guy, okay, right? Yeah. Well, I met one chiropractor in Lewiston. I call him Dr. Dan, and I had great experiences with him, okay? So my trust is built with him because the first day I met him, he said, Justin, I want to get you to come to this place enough so you never have to come and visit me again. I was like, sold, okay? I was leaning into him, right? And after it was about 12 weeks long, so it was, about 20 visits or so. It was a lot of visits. But he actually fixed my back, where I only visit him if I throw it out or something like that. And that was about 6 years ago, if truth be told. I have yet to have back problems ever again. Now, mind you, I just shared that with you. Why? I trusted him, right? And I trust you guys because I'm willing to convey this personal information to you, right? But we do this subconsciously. It's always on a subconscious level. Can I lean in? We're always trying to, and God has given this in the Bible. It calls this discernment. Okay, but it's something that's automatic. We automatically do this where we're feeling the room. Right? We're feeling the person to sense whether or not this person. We say something and all of a sudden they snipe at us, right? Well, obviously I can't talk to this person about that. So the trust is cut away a little bit, right? So we're leaning out. But if they seek more from us, right, we automatically start leaning in. Oh, really? Tell me more. Oh, really? Wow, that's great. Tell me more, right? And it's just this natural propensity to move in and out. So, but from the Bible's narrative, we have these things that are happening. We're always in the process of asking these type of things. Now, Amy I'm going to pronounce her name wrong. Cuddy? Amy Cuddy. Okay. She was quoted as saying, "Can I trust you is the universal subconscious question all of us are asking all the time. Like, this is what we're asking all the time, constantly. And this is with everything, honestly. It is with everything, even things that are inanimate, if truth be told. You could be reading a book. You could be reading a book and be deciding, can I trust this book to continue or not? Truthfully, because you don't know what this content is in that book. Even if it's a fictional story, right? And I've done this before. Honestly, I've done this before. I'm not even going to say the title of the books because I wish they would all be burned. I'm not kidding. I went through a series of books. There's like 7 books in the series. This was years ago, by the way, years and years ago. There was like 7 books in the series, right? I went through 4.5 of the books before I said, I can't. The story is so that I kept hoping that it would get better, but it broke my trust so often that I couldn't do it, right? And this is also why, and forgive me if anyone ever has the inclination to buy me a religious book, I have a really hard time reading a religious book outside of like the Bible, even commentaries on the Bible. I really have a hard time with it because I don't want to waste my time going through it and find out it was a garbage book and it actually ruined my relationship with Christ. That's not going to build it up. I don't want to waste that time. Sorry. Just a little bit about me. But this trust thing, it's always there. So this is always something internal. Anybody know who John Maxwell is? You raise your hand on that one? Ha! I knew I'd get at least 1 or 2 people. Okay. John Maxwell, he is a very famous author for writing primarily, business leadership books, okay, which I highly recommend getting his 101 series. They're little tiny books. It's like Attitude 101, Leadership 101. They're like condensed versions of his like bigger books that expound on the stuff. And they're just little tiny books. But one of the things that he was quoted in saying, I don't know if he actually was the first one to ever say this, but he said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And what he was talking about was leadership. He was talking about leadership. And he was talking about how if a leader actually and truly cares about the people they're leading, trust suddenly becomes solidified. It becomes solid. It becomes palpable, right? And Stephen Covey, this is another author that he writes these type of books. What was that? You know Stephen Covey? I have never heard of his name until I started looking at this. It's some of the stuff he said was great. So what he says here in this one book is he says, trust is the glue of life. It's the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's the foundational principle that holds all relationships. That's interesting. Trust is needed for leadership. Okay? Trust is the fastest thing on the earth. This is one of the things that he said, which is right here. Nothing is as fast as the speed of trust. Nothing is as fulfilling as relationship of trust, or you could probably say built on trust. Nothing is as inspiring as an offering of trust. Nothing is as profitable as the economics of trust. Nothing has more influence than a reputation of trust. There's a lot to unpack there, but let me put it to you this way. He was talking about the speed of trust. Let's just focus in on that one thing. The speed of trust is this, and this applies especially to a body of believers here, okay? How much will we accomplish in this church for this community if we can't trust each other? Right. If I can't trust my counterpart here, if we're teamed together in some evangelistic outreach, yet I cannot trust them to do their job, right? And how can we function? It's going to be clunky. It's not going to work. It's going to be forced, and people are going to know it, right?
Reminds me of when the Pharisees asked Jesus, told the people that Jesus was Satan.
Oh, right. They said that Jesus was Beelzebub, right? And what did Jesus say? Do you remember?
Why would Satan be fighting Satan?
Yes.
Stand.
Yes. He said a house cannot stand if it's not bound together, right? Why would Satan cast out Satan? And that's a perfect point. Because a very similar thing. If we are not unified, unification needs trust. Okay? And this is what he's saying. He says what happens especially in economics, let's just stick with economics really quickly, especially in economics, if there isn't a trust between these type of things, then it's going to fall apart. But if there is trust, if you have a leader or a team leader of some kind with a team, and there is trust there, all of a sudden they can move mountains. Suddenly, I want to share my ideas with the leadership because I can trust that it's going to get done. It's going to get done correctly. It's, the right, in many cases, people are like, well, I was the one that came up with that idea. That leader's not going to steal it from you. They're going to give you the due credit. Some people like that. I'm just saying, in general, when it comes to that trust. But unfortunately, today, in our current social climate, let me say, we have broken covenant. Big time. Big time. And this broken covenant leads to mistrust. Often we seek alternatives and then we have a collapse. Let me just give a few examples. Schools are telling children today they choose something as fundamental as their gender. And when you speak up as a parent, all of a sudden you're the bad guy and your children need to be taken away. That is broken covenant. Men can't stand up and defend a woman because otherwise they're shunned and they're considered, a chauvinist pig now, all of a sudden. Because masculinity is shunned upon. Women have lost safe spaces as basic as bathrooms and sports. And if you speak up against it, you're considered a bigot. A hater, right. You're considered someone who is distasteful and disdained, right? Exactly. Yeah. People who have to watch what they say online, otherwise they could be arrested. Here's a little. This is an old statistic, mind you. This is from 2018. Okay. Guess how many people in Russia were arrested in 2018 for social media posts? Like they said something on social media and they were arrested for it. About 400. That was pretty good guess. Russia. Okay, Russia was about 400 people. We look at that and we say, wow, that's pretty bad. Guess how many in Britain in 2018? Over 3,000. They were arrested because they said something. Not, let's go destroy this particular political figure. Not, let's assassinate somebody. No, they said something that was the political elite of the day. This is 2018, guys. The numbers have only risen. Just so you know, the numbers have only risen. And I haven't brought up the example of China, okay? Because they have their own social credit scoring. The reason I'm saying this is look at this. Broken covenant. We had the covenant once upon a time that we could trust what the government's going to do. Guess what? There's now mistrust in that. We're seeking alternatives. We need something different, right? And now we're seeing collapses around the world because of this. I'm not trying to be an naysayer. I'm just trying to build a foundation, guys, okay? just so we understand this. We're in a crisis of trust today. If we could sum up all of this, once upon a time, with all of the stuff that I just mentioned, once upon a time, there was a trust that I could send my children to a public school and trust that if anything happened to my child, I would be involved in the choices with my children. Now, I'm the bad guy because I demand that I have choices when it comes to raising my child. See, the trust is gone. The trust is utterly gone. The school cannot trust that I, as the parent, know what's best for my child. And I cannot trust the school system to know that they're going to do what's best. Not all the time, obviously, but generally. So we have this global sickness that's going on. If everybody would turn with me, we're actually going to play in all places, and you're probably not going to guess where. Daniel. We've been studying on Daniel. For those who haven't been coming on Tuesday nights, I know I missed last week. I was gone, but don't cluck your tongue at me. Let's go to 7. Daniel 7, of all places, Daniel. We're gonna read some things when it comes to trust and what happens in this book. So this is Daniel 7:9, and we're just gonna kind of, this is more or less where we're gonna stay. I beheld, speaking about Daniel, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and whose hair of his head was like pure wool. Okay? So God is not, just so we're all fully transparent here, this is not saying God is old. God is eternally young. He is in his prime. He's like 29. Wyatt made me 29 just the other day, so I was pretty happy about that. Huh? Right, exactly. He is eternally youthful, right? Now that doesn't fit in our brains, I get that, but he is. This pure wool, this hair of pure wool, this means he is ancient, yes, but he is wise. Thank you. Ooh, he knows, right? Before this takes place, about all other kingdoms, before we get to Daniel 7, we talk about in Daniel 6 and before and so on, there are kingdoms that are brought up, right? And I'm just gonna summarize these real quick. So we have the metal man, we have some beasts, we have these type of things, right? And what do we have with these kingdoms? These kingdoms are established, they're solid, they're strong, and they're taken over usually by an inferior kingdom through violence or trickery or deceit or just flat out muscle through, right? And then another kingdom is established, right? And then that kingdom is also taken over by another inferior kingdom, and then another, right? We just see this series of kingdoms that are risen and collapsed, risen and collapsed. So just keep that in mind. So Daniel is seeing these after he's already given these visions about these type of kingdoms. His throne was and this is still in Daniel 7:9, his throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. God is a consuming fire. But the interesting thing about this consuming fire is its warmth and life for us. But for the saints of God, it's something wonderful and beautiful, and it's light, right? And it's something wonderful. But for sin, it is not. It's a all-consuming fire. It consumes away all sin. It's like balsa wood. If it's just gonna go up quick. Daniel 7:10 says, a thousand thousands ministered to him, meaning God, the one sitting on the throne, right? 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. God has the whole heavenly host, and it took up and asked. We obviously asked the question: is this how you want to live? Okay, God, it's God sitting there. Just picture this for just a second. This is God in the heavenly kingdom. He's sitting on his throne, surrounded by 10,000 by 10,000s of 10,000s, right? Just this is a setup for a governmental system. Okay? Because what we see next is this. The court was seated and the books were opened. Okay? This is a full disclosure, open, trustworthy governmental system that God is doing here. Do you see this? The whole host is there with him, and then the books were opened. See, the heavenly court convenes to judge between two opposite systems of living. All right, so I'm just trying to set the stage here. This is God. Everyone is there. All the books are opened. An open book, that is a symbol of pure honesty and disclosure, and just, here it is. Here it is. Come and read, right? So the book of Daniel is a study of contrast. This is a big point. When we read through the whole book of Daniel, and as we're going through it on Tuesdays, you see this pattern. There are two systems of government. Two systems set up here. There is a government of deceit and violence and overthrowing and just, destructive animals, right? All of these visions, right? And then there is a government that God sets up, which is a stone that is not that's not carved by man, that comes out and just and smashes everything. And then it grows and becomes gigantic. And now there's this disclosure in the courtrooms. These are things that some of us here are familiar with because we live in America. America is one of the most strangest governmental experiments ever done, okay? Just historically speaking, courtroom case decisions were done and final and were not opened for discussion or debate. That's not how the court worked before. The court said, okay, you come before such and such lawyer, such and such religious figure. They'd pound the gavel and they would say, guilty, not guilty, get out of here. That was it. The kids and I actually just read a book that it took place short. It's a fictional book, but it took place shortly after the Spaniards took over Central South America, that kind of era where there were colonies and so on and so forth. And so this one man was arrested for not giving the king his rightful due. So he helped take some gold from the Indians, and he actually ended up getting rid of it at some point. So because he felt guilty about it, and he just, it was a sad story actually in the end. But not the point. My point is, he even stood before the audiencia, is what they called it, the courtroom, right? But it was just like any other courtroom, right? There was they made the decisions. But here, God has an open courtroom. Let's continue on. This is Daniel 7:13. It says, I was watching in the night vision and behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. Okay, this person is brought to God, and everything was given to him. Everything. Okay, check it out. Verse 7:14, chapter 7:14. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one which shall not be destroyed. So in the book of Daniel, it's all about kingdoms, right? Rising and falling, except for one. One, we have this kingdom that God sets up. He gives to the one that is the Son of God. And it doesn't fall. See, empires rise and fall, but the kingdom of Christ, it's eternal. It's on purpose. God has a purpose for doing this. He wants once and for all for this to be done. Skip down a little bit. Skip down to verse 27 there. Then the kingdom and the dominion, because they talk for a little while there. Then it goes on and continues what happened. Then the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. Pause. What is this saying? Let's analyze here. Sorry, if anybody didn't know I was preaching, this is interactive, so. Go ahead. Ooh, the whole earth will belong to the righteous. But wasn't all the kingdom, all the power, all the glory, wasn't it all just given a few verses before to the Son of Man? So hold on. So let's talk about this, Greg, for just a sec. So all the power is given to God, or given to from God to Jesus. It's all given to him, and he gives it back? He gives it to the people?
Not all people.
No, the saints of the Most High. That's a good point. It says this given to the people, comma, the saints of the Most High. The holy people. No, that's good. That's a good version. To the holy people, the righteous. Yep. God is giving the kingdom, or Jesus is giving the kingdom back. One of the most amazing things about America is that the people technically own the government. Technically.
We
Used to, yes. I know I hear scoffing for those of you who are on internet land. Yes, there were scoffing in the audience. Rightfully so. I totally understand. We used to. It was established that way. How about I say it that way? It was established where the people were in control. The people were the one that made the decisions. This is why we have systems in place so that leaders, now mind you, there were a couple presidents to begin with that ended up getting more than two terms, but that's when term limits were put in place and all that other stuff, so that not one person could be in charge for too long, right? It was supposed to be the people. This is very interesting that before America was established, it seems like God desires a government that's very similar to that. Let's skip a couple chapters. Let's go to Daniel 9:26. And after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. He is the only one worthy to sit on the throne because he gave himself for the others. Yet he doesn't keep the kingdom, he gives it to the people. This is the underlined phrase there, but not for himself. He wasn't cut off for himself. He didn't do this for himself. I really hope your trust in God is really starting to rise just a little bit. I've read the book of Daniel through and through multiple times. And some of the stuff I did not catch until I stopped and started looking at these things. God giving his government back to his people because he wants a government of transparency. Daniel 9:27 says, "Then he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering." Jesus on the cross ended the sacrificial system. Many of us know this. That's good. Okay? For those of you who don't understand, the sacrificial system, the lambs and the goats and the rams and all of that stuff, all the blood stuff, all the sacrificial stuff that happened in the sanctuary service, it was unnecessary now. All of it pointed to Christ. So it was unnecessary. He confirmed the covenant. What's a covenant? A contract, an agreement. But he, in Daniel 11:22, check this out. It says he is what? The prince of the covenant. He is the prince of the covenant. So I'm sorry, I get excited about this one because this is the way it was, okay? God found a man named Abraham. He set up a covenant. Abraham said, "I trust God." Abraham never kept it. His kids never kept it. Right? And the covenant was built up again on Mount Sinai. And God made these promises. And finally God says, they're not going to keep their side. There's always at least two sides to a covenant, right? To an agreement. There's always two. There's the number one and number two. Party one and party two. God was party one. I always kept it. But instead, he said, you know what? What if I kept up both sides? And his son said, I'll do it. I'll go. And he went to party two, and he became party two and kept it. He is the prince of the covenant. Here are a couple other titles. Son of Man, Messiah the Prince, Prince of the Covenant. Within Daniel, these names are all given to Jesus. Okay? All of these are covenantal, have that essence of covenantal, have that essence of keeping promises, right? In Daniel, we're going back to Daniel 9:4 here. Daniel 9, verse 4 says, this is the NIV, it says, Lord, the great and awesome God, who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments. Love in the Bible is not a Hollywood love, by the way. What's another word for love? What did I start off by talking about? Trust. What's another word for love? You have to have it. Love doesn't exist without trust. You can't. You cannot say, I love that person without having the ability to trust them. It doesn't exist. You have to have it, right? In Hollywood, it's, oh, babeable today and beautiful today, and I love you now, and it's this ushy, gushy, whooshy kind of thing, right? The teenage love type thing, and then it's gone because I found another babeable person. Yeah, right? So now she's more attractive than you. then guess what? That wasn't love to begin with. The Bible doesn't have this Hollywood love, right? Where it shifts and sways and moves. No. The scriptural love is solid. It's anchoring. It's immovable. Doing what is right for all others, no matter the cost to self. That's the biblical love that Jesus displayed. The covenant of relational integrity. This is the covenant of relationships being held together steadfast. Isaiah 54:10 says, though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, yet my unfailing love for you will not be shaken, nor my covenant of peace be removed. Jesus confirmed the faithful love as the only eternal government principle. Yes, this is the NIV version. So Jesus confirmed the covenant of love. He was the one that confirmed it. Once again, he was on both sides of it, which I think that's awesome because he brought both sides back together. Unfaithful love is not sustainable. Why isn't unfaithful love sustainable? Why? What doesn't it have? Uh-oh. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Evil can't sustain itself. I know in Hollywood, they really try to push these type of dystopian societies that one day we're going to get to this and humanity's going to just keep surviving. It won't. Okay, I'm telling you, I'm not a naysayer. I'm just telling you, evil it is an unsustainable model of government. If I am only out for myself and I'm constantly taking, then what am I building? If I build something up and you just want to take it away anyway, well, then it's just a system of taking. And you can't take forever. Eventually, it's gone. There's nothing, there's destruction. There's nothing to take, right? In Romans 5:18, it says, one man's righteous act, and this is a really interesting verse. I would love for you to read through it. Or actually, the chapter. This is what Paul says. Because of one man's righteous act. I never view this verse the same again. Because Jesus, because of this one righteous act, he set in motion something that cannot be undone. He was the perfect example of trust and love and doing something no matter what the cost to self. Doing what is right no matter what the cost to self. You can't undo that. Here we are over 2,000 years later, still talking about the man that did that. By the way, his one man's righteous act, I'm not talking about his death on the cross. I'm talking about his life. His entire existence is what made that mark. There are verses in the Bible, and I brought this up the last time I preached, about how Jesus was spit upon, cast out upon, he was beat, everything, and it says that he never once spoke out against them with his mouth. Never once. Let's have a story of George and George. And many have heard of this story, possibly, but that's fine. This is interesting. So King George III was king during the time of George Washington. Anybody heard of George Washington? Maybe a couple of us, okay? Those of you who do not know, George Washington is the first president of the United States of America. Yes, they do. Kind of frightening. Yes, they did. So let me tell you guys a story. For those of you who are still in history class, George III was told about what George Washington did. Cast out the Reds, right? They're now off the land. This is after the Declaration of Independence. This is after the war. George Washington led the army in the Great Battle. Okay, it's over, right? England is like, we don't want to deal with this anymore. They came back to King George, and King George said, because this is what happened, George Washington was approached by his people and said, we want to crown you king. Woo! And George Washington said, no, I got I got some property I want to build up, actually. I want to grow some cauliflower. I want to grow some apples. I recommend you do the same. Why don't you go build a farm? Why don't you go do something with your land? Why don't you own where you live and do something with it, develop it? King George was told this, and he said, if he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world. Because King George III knew that when men are approached with power, and they said it before his feet, and said, no, George, we want you to be king. George Washington, we want you to be king. You can do this. You've led us to this victory. You're going to, and he's, no. And afterward, after they established the government, King George III was quoted as saying, Washington is the most distinguished of any living man and the greatest character of this age. Why is this such a big deal? Why was this such a big deal for the King of England to say, this is huge, if he can withstand this power? Why is that so big? Why?
It's not the nature of man to do that.
It's not the nature of man. I like that. Everybody, right. We all want power. That's the nature of man in our core. Right? Yes. We want that. And George said, no, he didn't lose sight. Let me just put it this way. He didn't lose sight. They came here for religious freedom. And he knew if we had the old government and just brought it here, we'd be another monarchy. It'd be the exact same thing. Why? Men are governed by the ideas that govern them. Think about that for a sec. George wanted a true freedom. I just want this 100 acres. I want to grow some cotton. I want to grow some apples. I want to grow some pears. And leave me alone, right? Like, that's what he wanted. Mind you, yes, he did become president, but president isn't a king. No, he didn't. They still had to establish a government. Yeah. Yeah. That we have, yeah. The whole whole governmental system we have today. But when it comes to our ideas are what govern us. Many of and I know Bob has studied stuff too when it comes to AI and what it does. People, let me let you in on a secret. When it comes to AI is only going to be as good as the internet is. That is precisely right. But the internet, where a lot of AI gets its information, it's full of junk. So it's garbage in, garbage out. I'm just saying, human beings, we have an evil heart, and it just. But if your heart is filled with the principles of love, peace, joy, selflessness, and self-governance, then anything to the contrary would be appealing, right? Messiah gains back the kingdom so he can give it back to his people. Jesus is not the king of the world as God, but the king of the world as a man. As a man was, believe it or not, meant to be. Jesus is called the second Adam for a reason. Adam was not meant to be lord over his children. Adam was meant to be a prince. A prince is like he's the first, right? And he was supposed to be a father over the world. A father is loving, is kind. Father doesn't set up a government right, he doesn't set up these systems of governance like we have today where, nope, I'm sorry, please bring your complaint to this department and fill this out before I can, hear it. No. A father hears a complaint from the child. Come, sit, child. Let's talk. Come, let us reason together. The Messiah alone is worthy to rule and reign because he is the prince of the government. He inspires trust. He develops trust. He grows relational integrity, and he's faithful in love. When you give yourself to Jesus, he gives you back to yourself, changed into a majestic creature of responsible self-governance. This is God's world that he wants for us. Self-governance. And this, I hope this one question can solidify this. Many of you have heard this question. If you have, that's fine. You have full reign to answer it. Who is going to keep sin out of heaven for all eternity? We are. I heard Jesus. That's fine. Most people think it's Jesus. It's not. We just read where he's going to give the kingdom back to who? The saints. Right. How are we going to keep sin out of the kingdom? Oh, we've seen it. We've seen it, Greg. We've seen the depravity of humanity. And because of this, we've seen the depravity, we appreciate the love even more. Imagine if there's a world out there that never fell. They've always lived in peace. They've always lived in love. They've always lived in harmony. Now imagine knowing someone that lost peace, love, and harmony with God. Yeah. Yes. This is part of this. When you give yourself to Jesus, he gives you back he gives you yourself back, but changed into what man and woman were supposed to be. And I really hope that just solidifies, because my whole point in bringing up all of this is trust. This church without trust will not succeed. Trust in each other, trust in God. It's not a relationship. It's slowly declining all the time. And that's what we need. I'm not saying we don't have it. What I'm saying is the trust, without trust building up, it's dying. It's not there. And with Christ's help, this church can be that in this community. There's a lot of people out there. Just to emphasize one last thing, everyone. There's a lot of people out there in this community today that don't have trust in anyone. Imagine filling that void in their life. They don't even know what trust is. And all of a sudden I've seen this at work, where I've told people, listen, I love you, man. And they were taken aback. No, blew their mind. They just literally just blew their mind. And then I was wondering, I was praying to God, I'm like, what is going on? And God let me know, well, they've never experienced it. Or they've experienced it very little. And if we can be that link to show them what real trust is, to show them what real love is, trust is the fastest thing on this planet. And with that, we can move mountains here. Huh? Absolutely. Go ahead and come up here, Norma. And we will sing a song that I chose. 590. I forgot what the number was.
590, shall we